I'm so happy to be in this space where we all like understand sort of the same experience, but just the burden of when you're in a space that isn't made for you and suddenly you feel the burden of having to explain your existence and why you exist in the world and why you interact in the world a specific way. So it's cool that we don't have to explain that to each other here.
Welcome to Bitch Talk. I'm your host, Erin.
And I'm co-host Ange, aka Captain Party.
2026 brings us into our 13th year of podcasting, and we're proud to be here. Thank you to our followers and longtime listeners for voting us Best of the Bay Best Podcast for 3 years in a row, and to SF Film for adding us to the respected list of essential SF winners.
If this is your first time listening, where the hell have you been? But better late than never. We're like if the rap group Salt and Peppa met the show Grace and Frankie and had a baby. And if you don't understand what that means, ask Jeeves. And now, on with the show. Clink!
Welcome to South by Southwest 2026. Thank you to our festival sponsors, Standard Deviant Brewing and The Tech We Want. In this episode, we're covering narrative films about Asian American stories, Rock Springs and Mum. Enjoy.
Welcome to South by Southwest 2026. This is Bitch Talk coming at you. Oh, thank you for the applause. Oh my God.
I know.
We have a live studio audience who are also our guests. So thank you for holding two jobs today. Yeah. We're talking about the film Rock Springs, which we're very excited to discuss. It's having its Texas premiere in the narrative feature. We have two guests with us. I'll have you introduce yourself and the role you play in this film.
I'm Vera Miao. I'm the writer, director, and a producer on Rock Springs. Really happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Kelly Marie Tran. I play Emily. So happy to be here.
Okay, Vera, let's start with you. Can you introduce the film to our audience? We start with the hard question first.
Breathe.
Rock Springs is what I would call a ghost story. And it starts by following a family that's been really torn apart by grief from a recent loss. And they have to move to this new town of Rock Springs. And in the course of moving there and getting settled or trying to settle into this isolated town where they know no one, the family starts to experience some strange things, particularly rooted in the woods behind their new home. And that's pretty much the setup of the film. There is an intersection with the real-life massacre of Chinese coal miners in 1885.
Perfectly leads into my question. So this is what I wrote down was a horror film wrapped in Chinese American history. Can you talk about the concept of that? And then Kelly, can you talk about getting the script and joining? You're a producer, exec producer?
Oh yes, I am.
So and talk about that. Yeah. So I'll start with Vera.
Yeah, I mean, so the idea for Rock Springs really came out of my desire to explore the lived and felt experience of being a child of diaspora in the context of horror. And, you know, knowing what that meant emotionally was to know that it was a ghost story, right? So that being, I'm a child of immigrants myself. My parents are immigrants from Taiwan. Their families themselves immigrated from mainland China to Taiwan. And so, you know, that sort of the feeling of being split across different places, different cultures, different histories, different timelines, different languages, you know, and how that translates into sometimes this sort of feeling of longing, a little loneliness, the desire and the wish to feel like you could have an unbroken story and a really clear narrative, but you can't construct that. Creates these sensations of grief. So those were really what I wanted to explore through a ghost story. But I also knew that I wanted to uplift and highlight some untold history of the early Chinese communities in America. And I didn't know what that was at the time when I first started, but I knew that that's one of the things I wanted to interweave with this contemporary story about a family grieving a loss. And that's what kind of got the ball rolling. So I started to do my research, and I had spent some time in the Mississippi Delta years ago. And so that experience actually led me down a path where I came across Dolly Lee's documentary that ultimately inspired Ryan Coogler's Chinese Characters and Sinners. but it didn't.
Shout out, yes.
Oscar Day. I want to
Oscar Day.
So
Today is Oscar
Sinners all the
Day.
way.
Sinners
For the
all
win.
the
Yes.
way.
Anyways,
And then Rock Springs is coming at you next year.
correct.
What?
We call it the bitch talk bump.
We do. Yeah.
I will take the bitch top bump all day, every day, 24/7.
BTB,
Barry
baby.
Jenkins was on Moonlight Wins.
Yes.
Coincidence?
Direct correlation.
Straight line.
Yes.
I loved Dolly's documentary. I didn't exactly see a story there, so I started doing other research, including random questions like, were there Chinese cowboys? And that's actually what led me to the Rock Springs Massacre. And when I first started reading about it, I was stunned that I'd never heard of it. Like shocked. And the deeper I dove into it, the more it was very clear that this is what I was going to include in the film.
Mm-hmm. And Kelly, do you mind just following up with that, just in terms of like getting the script and then signing on, not only just to be featured talent, but then also exec producer?
Yeah. Vera and I met 8 years ago at Bricks and Scones in LA. And it wasn't about any specific project. It was really just about what we were interested in exploring and just like how we were approaching, I guess, being in this insane industry, especially as two Asian women.
We can't relate at all.
No, we have no idea.
Listen. It's a lot. I think that, we haven't even talked about this really, but like, I'm so happy to be in this space where we all like understand sort of the same experience, but just the burden of when you're in a space that isn't made for you and suddenly you feel the burden of having to explain your existence and why you exist in the world and why you interact in the world a specific way. So it's cool that we don't have to explain that to each other here. That being said, we had a lot of conversations about like what we were interested in. And then a few years later, she sent me Rock Springs and I read it and immediately knew that I had to be a part of it. I think that Vera is a genius, but I think also her understanding of emotionality and her understanding of I feel like she's almost thinking on a different plane of existence. Truly, like even just the way that she talks about the film and the ideas that she is mulling over and the ideas that she's exploring. It almost feels like every time I hear her talk about it, I'm like, oh, I'm being enlightened. Like I'm learning something new about how to be in the world, especially in the context of Rock Springs, like this idea that past and present and future are not
Linear.
Yeah, and they're not different. Like they're all happening at the same time. We're all experiencing all of these things at the same time. And I think that she beautifully conveyed that in this film. Like the idea that Emily is a character living in the present day, but is being so affected by these things that happened so long ago that she's not even aware of. And how does that feel in your body and in your DNA? And how does that affect the way that you exist in the world without even knowing? And then by the end, having to really confront that. And also acknowledge the ways in which you have perhaps perpetuated more violence. And how do you deal with that? And how do you acknowledge that? And can you acknowledge that? I think the most important thing is to acknowledge it and to be able to grow from it and to heal from it. But I think we're living in an age right now where folks are having a lot of time acknowledging things. I'll just say that in a very vague way. But so to have been this person and lived this experience through and being able to collaborate with Vera, and I think that when you're an actor and you get the privilege of working on something like this and experiencing the emotions and feelings of this other person, like it does definitely affect the way that you live in life. And I think about it a lot. Like, what are the ways in which I need to re-examine myself? What are the ways in which I've done things that maybe I'm not even conscious of? And how do I acknowledge that? And how do I heal? And how do we move forward in a way that's positive? I don't know. Can we be positive in this day and age? I don't know. Productive? I don't know. What is the word? Yeah. Like
progressive.
Progress. Like, I don't know. What is that word? How do we move forward in a way where we are acknowledging the tragedies and violence of the past,
trauma,
but also learning from them? I don't know the answer to this, but I think that is the thing that was exciting to explore as we were making this film. And I think I'm still very much exploring it. And every time I watch it and every time we talk about it, I'm still figuring that out. And I don't know that I'm ever going to find an answer, but I think even spending time with Vera and having these questions be posed to the audience is something that I haven't seen before. So yeah, just truly honored to be in your circle.
Honor was all mine.
I'm glad you brought that up, Kelly. I want to jump on this bandwagon, giving Vera her flowers, because something that I really loved about watching this film and what came up for me was how ghosts and haunting has many definitions in this film. Sure, there's the literal, right, of a ghost, of a haunting, and that's what makes it a great thriller. But then there's that parallel story of our ancestors, our generational trauma that are haunting us, that are our literal ghosts. There are the people from our past. And when you think of it in that way, it makes it less scary, and it makes it more something that you want to confront to bring peace, some sort of closure and peace within your own story and culture.
Yeah, and like a big question that animated me with this film, and just in general, is the question of what's the difference between a ghost and an ancestor. And we come from cultures that are predicated on ancestor worship. So that often has a pretty healthy mythology around ghosts as well, right? And what is that difference? That question has really preoccupied me, because as far as I can tell, the only difference is fear versus love. And so I think what I'm trying to do in the film, among many things, is to talk about that. And if there's ever an arc that has not a happy ending, but some sort of progress, some sort of evolution, it is being able to sort of start in fear, and then with knowledge and acceptance, maybe be able to turn that into love. And I think that applies both for the individual or family grief of this tragic loss of a family member, but it's also generational and collective, about the violence that happens in 1885, and that's not separate from our individual and family grief. It may not happen on the same level, because it's happening maybe at the subconscious, maybe it's happening in the land and in the air, but it's there, and we know it, even if we can't pin it down just yet. So, I think that I don't have an answer to all of these questions either, but I suspect that the journey from fear to love involves knowledge and acceptance of that knowledge. And that's both in terms of what we're capable as people, in terms of that violence, but also, frankly, just confronting death. When we're afraid of death, it's usually because we try not to know about it so that it can kind of stay a monster. And what I've always appreciated about being Chinese and being raised by Chinese parents is, one of the many ways that I feel different than perhaps, like American-born, really Western perspectives, is that from when I was little, I understood the relationship between life and death. And so death wasn't as scary for me, perhaps. It wasn't as taboo. You have ancestor worship, you know what I mean? Like, you understand that, when we die, we have spirits that walk into the afterlife. There is that active conversation. And so perhaps I didn't have the same kind of, we can't talk about death, I can't think about it. That's what I'm most afraid of. And, but I'm clearly fascinated by it, and really clearly fascinated by what happens to us when our physical containers pass. And I'm rambling now, but yeah, I think that's really at the core of, thank you for noticing that, about that there's multiple levels of haunting and multiple definitions of what it means to be a ghost. Partly, one could argue that we're ghosts if we're disassociated from who we are and what our lineage is, and we're ghosts walking.
Or if we're ignored by our peers because of
or
what
erased,
we look like or where we come from.
Yes, or rendered invisible. One could argue that we're ghosts walking. And so, do you know what I mean? In maybe poetic and theoretical terms, not in literal, and I'm playing with all of that.
I just felt that so deeply. I'm like, I can't even breathe. Wow. Yeah. See? She's enlightening us.
Just stop.
And this is rambling to you,
Yeah, I know.
Vera. All right.
This is not a fully formed question, but I was thinking about this, and I've been talking with Ange about this. We don't have kids. We're not going to have kids, but talking about legacy work and like what we do, I think, is legacy work, and what y'all are doing is legacy work. So can you, either of you, talk about like your choices? I mean, this movie is legacy work, right? This is hopefully going to be shown in history classes or Asian American history or something like that. So can you talk a little bit about maybe just thinking about that, or if you have thought about that in terms of your work?
With Rock Springs in particular, absolutely was legacy work. So when I might not have thought about it in exactly those terms, but I had really particular intentions, especially when I started doing research. I wanted to uplift history of early Chinese communities in part selfishly to force myself to do some research and get to know a little bit more. And as I started to dig in, I was again and again appalled by many things, one of which is that there's no primary source material that exists for the early Chinese community. So that means that there is no letter home that survived, no journal entry, no first-person interview, where we actually get to know those first Chinese people in the U.S. in their own words. We only have observations from other people watching them. And those other people were typically not Chinese. Never Chinese, frankly. Again, no primary source material. That was shocking to me. And so the actual research that constructs our understanding of what it was like, for instance, to be, like a Chinese man who immigrated to the U.S. in the gold rush or in the railroad era or in the years that followed, like that takes place in Rock Springs and coal mining. And the coal mine company was a railroad company, right? They just expanded and pivoted. The attempts to try to construct a full human multidimensional picture are so challenging. And, when I looked at the research, for instance, on the railroad era, there's a little bit more. And one of the things that really struck me was that in the two companies that were building the railroad across the country, the one from the West Coast east and the one from the East Coast west that met in Utah, the company from the East Coast to west never even recorded the names of the tens of thousands of Chinese laborers that they hired. They just bought them in lots. It's why the creature in the film is called the Nameless, because I wanted to honor the fact that we don't actually know names. We don't know what they did on a day-to-day basis. We don't know, in their own words, what they thought, how they felt, what they wanted. We can only postulate. And that, to me, felt so stark. I knew I wanted to humanize the characters. I did not want them to be only understood as victims. And then when I started to do the research to try to construct what a day off, which is when the massacre happened, it was Sunday at 5 p.m. and it was their day off. What would they be doing on that day? I realized that so much of it was going to have to be an act of imagination. And so the legacy work, I think, made a lot of sense for me, even though this is a fictional narrative film. I don't shoot the film. I don't shoot the movie in a landscape that looks like Rock Springs, Wyoming. You'll notice that in the film itself, I never say Wyoming. I just say Rock Springs. Mm-hmm. But to a certain degree, like, we have broken timelines, incomplete histories, lack of, first-person voices. So all we can do to build legacy is to actually fill in those gaps with our imagination. Mm-hmm. We take what we can, the knowledge and the facts and artifacts and the history, and there's incredible historians who are doing this work. But from there, I was like, my job, I'm not a researcher, I'm not a historian, I'm not trying to make a documentary, but I can use fiction as an act of imagination to bring these characters into people, into life, and kind of imagine what a day in their life would have been like and what they wished for and what they talked about and how they laughed and what games they played and also how they felt as they moved through this world. And that's what I hope my legacy is, which is that we don't have to just accept that we don't have a full picture. We can also bring in our love to fill in some of those holes. And so maybe that full picture is not going to be quote unquote accurate, but so is that's history. History's not accurate. Mm-hmm. History is an act of storytelling and imagination. Mm-hmm. So I just take it that step further. Mm-hmm. and bring active love into the creation of these characters and a sense of place and time, in hopes that there is some legacy there. Yeah.
There is. Unfortunately, we have to wrap. Wow, a lot to process there. But we do end each segment with something we call This Bitch. So on a lighter note,
Excited.
So this is your chance to either shine a light on someone or something that's bringing you joy, or throw shade at something or someone that is pissing you off. So I'll let you decide who wants to start. Who is your This Bitch of the moment?
Oh, I can go right
Go,
away.
you go.
This bitch, I'm wearing her.
Oh,
So listeners can't see.
she's not wearing a fur coat. Don't worry.
Oh my God, tragic.
I mean, PETA is going to come after us.
It's true, it's
Vera.
true.
Be careful.
No, this bitch is giving me life every single day. And this is my dog, Sesame. I'm wearing a shirt that has her face in 5 different expressions.
She also makes an appearance in Vera's Sundance Filmmaker video. Y'all need to watch it. But yeah, Sesame has been a consistent source of joy for Vera.
Yeah, that's my dog, and that's my bitch. She keeps me like grounded, centered. She has so much shade. If I have like self-pity, or I have a moment of like, no, for real. Really? She gives me so much shade, because she's like, get over yourself. This is not a real thing. But then if something's really sad, she will comfort. Yeah. And she's my mirror. Like, she tells me what's true and what's not. I kid you not. I know this might sound crazy to people, but that's my soul dog. That's who I walk through life with, and that's my bitch.
That is so profound.
Good luck with yours, Kelly.
Yeah, I know.
You better bring it.
I was gonna do
No
like
pressure.
I was gonna be like, this bitch. My bitches are these bitches.
Okay, you won.
Thank you.
won.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're the winner.
No, I truly had such a good time, and
Yeah.
it's been a really in-depth, beautiful conversation. So thank you for facilitating it, and thankful for you, bitches.
Well,
Same.
thankful for this film.
Yeah.
I think this is an inflection point in the vein of Jordan Peele, Ryan Coogler. This is hopefully a stepping
Hell
stone
yeah,
for
it
the
is, for
telling
Vera,
of
yes.
Asian stories, specifically Asian American stories. Again, we've been speaking with director Vera Miao, actor Kelly Marie Tran of the film Rock Springs. Congratulations, and thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you. It was
you.
amazing. So happy to be here.
Welcome to South by Southwest 2026. In this segment, we're talking about the film Mom, which is having its U.S. premiere in the narrative feature category. We're sitting down with 3 guests from the film. We're going to have you introduce yourselves so the audience can recognize your voice and the role that you play. We'll start here to my left.
Hey, I am Gerald Head, and I am lead actor.
I am Nan Fikes, and I'm the film director.
I am Nhung, and I am also actress and owner of Mom.
Okay, we'll start with you, Nan, our director. Can you introduce the film to our audience?
Yes, absolutely. This is a film about tolerance. It's about hope and friendship and family, and it's really about someone who wants to open his restaurant, and is going to be helped by the whole community. So that's what we try to share in this film, and those values of communities helping each other and respecting each other. The fact that you are stronger together is the most important thing, we think, and that's what we share in this film.
Mm-hmm.
I just want our listeners to know we have another guest on the mic that you're going to hear. He's adorable. So just letting our listeners know that's
Our
we've got
youngest guest to
Our
date.
youngest guest ever. But I do want to talk about this film and the way it was made. And it's kind of a pseudo-documentary, but it's kind of not. So can you talk about... Because if I didn't know any better, it's a doc to me.
No, exactly. But the thing is, my best friend is French and Vietnamese, but he's a New Yorker. He's been living in New York for 25 years, and he was chef during like 2 decades, a Vietnamese chef. And I was able to witness a lot of stories and anecdotes and details about cooking Vietnamese and having restaurants. Mm-hmm. And I was so amazed about that I did a documentary on my friend. His name is An Nguyen Duan. And And then I was like, we need to talk about that, but in a feature film fiction approach. So I did a short film called Ban Me Quest like 5 years ago. And I expand that with that kind of documentary approach because, exactly.
Yeah. He gets it.
I
He
love
gets
that
it.
because it was really about a very small crew to treat it like a documentary, because I love this very thin line between documentary and fiction, because it feels the most authentic as possible. I want the viewer to feel exactly what the characters are feeling, to breathe with them, and this approach for me is so visceral. It touches me, but it's so. When I came to Gerald and Jung, thanks to my friend Anne, it's because he knew them and they bought his restaurant and started their restaurant at my friend's place. And my friend is the actual casting director of the movie. And we bring all our friends in, and he told me, you know what, Jung and Gerald, they should be the best for this movie. So I went to those guys, and they were immediately super motivated. So Gerald told me, this is an experience, incredible experience, and we can talk about mom in a different way. And especially today, I think it's very important to be creative, not just doing a film, but something more like community thing, and trying to tell about this story in different ways. So he was motivated, and I came with a script, and what do you think about that? So it was already written. And because he was very into it, I came to New York, and we did a lot of tests with and without camera, and to see if they were able to act and if they were feeling the characters. And we adapt all the dialogues depending of their personality also. Because I'm French, and when I say this or that, maybe it's not the right way to say it. And when it's beautiful, and when you have actors, then you say, okay, how would you say it? So we changed the dialogue. So I work with Marine Garnier, who's actually also my producer. She's my producer and co-writer. And together we try to adapt, all the dialogues because of these guys. And so that's the way we approach that. So when Gerald told me his story, I was so amazed. The fact that he's coming from Texas, he didn't know anything about the Asian food in general. So he was raised by his mother with frozen pizza, and he did this trip to Vietnam. This big shock emotionally and about the senses. He wanted to become a Vietnamese chef, and I found it so powerful. And he talked to me, and I was like, my God, we should bring this into the screenplay, into the scenario. So everything is scripted, but it was also influenced by Gerald and Jung's story for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do want to turn to you, Gerald. I visited Vietnam like 15 years ago, and it also changed me, inspired by so many different aspects of it. So can you talk about your experience in Vietnam, where you spent your time, and what specifically you learned from the chefs there?
Totally. My first trip to Vietnam in 2015, I had already been studying Vietnamese food for quite a while. And I knew that my next chapter was going to be, if I want to continue to learn, what is Vietnamese food, to go to Vietnam. So I was already living in New York. It was my first year in New York, and I bought a one-way ticket to Vietnam. I ended up staying for 3 months, my first trip, and fell in love. It was life-changing. I will never forget, it was so vivid, the actual experience of coming back to New York from leaving Vietnam, and how real it was, and how I traveled from the south all the way to the north. I met Neum on that trip, my wife, and just how beautiful it was. I remember waking up in New York thinking, where am I going to eat breakfast? There's no food stalls out here.
Yeah,
exactly.
What am I doing?
Where are the little chairs and tables
what
on
am
the
I
sidewalk?
doing?
Why?
I go to the bodega and got a bacon, egg, and cheese, and I'm just like, this is so, the experience was so real, and I had loved Vietnam for so long before I'd even gone there. When I had my first time having Vietnamese food, the experience was such an eye-opening and heart-opening experience that I knew at a young age gosh, this is what I want to pursue. You know, I already knew I wanted to cook, and so to follow my heart even further of cuisine and now culture that really spoke to my soul. It was beautiful. You know, as you said, it was a life-changing experience. The people out there was so beautiful. Just the culture, you know, of like it all revolves around food and family. You know, it's really aligns with my my life as well. You know, in terms of like learning from chefs out there, you know, it's interesting because, you know, I don't think Auntie would call herself like a chef. You know, she's just working. You know, it's just a job for her, and she's selling, you know, I don't know, like a banh mi on the side of the street, right? And just, you know, connecting with them like as a human, and you know, learning from them just like, you know, I don't know, they're always so amazed like when I could speak Vietnamese, and that's obviously a privilege that I have as a white man coming to Vietnam, and speaking their language is like, you know, they open up their eyes really big, and they're just like, oh my gosh, invite me in, and you know, we start to have a conversation. And you know, my first trip, I didn't speak, you know, very great Vietnamese, but you know, I was able to pick up certain things. But it's more about getting inspired from just like the energy, as opposed to like learning like, you know, like a specific recipe or a technique. That came further through my travels of like going back and like the same auntie that I would go to her banh mi stall in 2015, I would go back in 2018, and now it's like we're friends and we're catching up, you know, and that's kind of when like I start to learn like these like techniques, or especially cooking with Neum's family. My wife's family is always huge. Definitely, you know, I remember the beginning when I was cooking for her family, it was a lot of critiques, a lot of feedback.
A lot of notes. You had a lot of notes.
But now it's, you know, it's definitely transformed where it's like, you know, Neum and I, we come back home and they have like a whole list of things that they want us to cook for them. So yeah, it's been a journey for sure.
Yeah, everything changed. Yeah, at the beginning, like they judge you, like, oh, this one is lacking something, and now they just waiting for you to come back and cook for them that to eat good. And like example, like my sister-in-law, like, oh, I want to eat bún riêu, and I just want to waiting for Cheryl to come back to cook for me. I eat outside. I don't like it. Like, yeah,
It's the ultimate sign of respect and acceptance. Yeah.
So in the script and what we see is a lot of hardship and passion, though, about wanting to make this food and create this kind of this community of people that want to eat this food. And I want to know from our restaurateurs and also from the director, though, did he get it? Did he hit it on the head? Was that what was going on while the restaurant was coming together? And also just the passion it takes to do this work as restaurant folks. We work in a bar in San Francisco, and it's a small business, and it's a heavy lift every day. So can you talk about just the passion that goes into it?
Well, you know, definitely us finding ourselves in, you know, a position of owning a restaurant I never imagined, and you know, just circling, you know, the name An, you know, Nan's best friend, you know, he's like an angel on my shoulder, because An mentioned, you know, I bought that lease from An, and An definitely wasn't hounding me like Mr. Lee, you know, for money.
Yes.
You know,
Mr. Lee was relentless.
He was. You know, An was very understanding and really changed our lives in that regard of really giving us a runway to do our pop-up and saving up money organically, that we didn't have to get any type of loans or investments. You know, it was all like from a seed. You know, when we first started the pop-up, it was just, you know, it was 2020. An invited us out to his restaurant. He's like, hey, if you run my operation in the mornings, you guys can have it in the night. And we were just like, you know, COVID, unemployed, just at home. Neum had just came to New York. Yeah, she was living in Vietnam. We were long there.
Wow, what a time.
So we were, exactly, right. We were, for that summer in New York, you know, the pandemic was really, really nasty, and there was no end in sight. I had no idea when we were going to see each other. And so when she finally came, we were just at home cooking and just enjoying our newfound time together. There's no more like clock above our heads of like, you know, long distance back and forth type of situation. And then An invited us out to do just a cook at his spot. You know, it's a small, 10, 15 seats, you know, very, very tiny. Yeah. And we did it for fun, and it turned into something that we never would have imagined. And so to have that opportunity from An was a blessing for sure.
But that's funny because Anne talked to me about you for many years because he said, I spotted a guy working in another restaurant called D&D from another friends, and I'm trying to push him and tell him to open his own stuff. That was funny because I heard about Gerald and Jung for a while. And I experienced the same kind of story with my friend Anne because he was struggling, and he was one of the first doing a pop-up in New York. So he had on New York Times, an article saying, maybe it's a solution when you don't have money and in terms of a bad crisis. And he started like that. So that was funny. Their story was like a mirror to Anne's story. It was, so it felt like something special, and it has to happen.
It is. It's the perfect marriage of a well-written script and then their story coming into it and weaving with your script. You can tell that the film is of the community, for the community, by the community.
Yes.
That scene when your pop-up, you're first serving that restaurant of people, I'm like, those are their friends. Those are their friends. Those are people from the community. You can feel the love and the connection in the room. But along those lines, I want to bring up Chen because I love this character, Chen. I'm hoping did he show up on set just looking like that?
Yes.
And you were like, no notes, let's go.
No, it's crazy because it's like the mayor of Chinatown. So he's working close
Chen.
by Mom.
He works at a plumbing shop.
Oh my
He works at a plumbing shop.
Yeah.
So that's the funny thing, because if you go to New York on 74th High Street, you will find them. They will take care of you at Mom Restaurant. And beside you're going to meet Chen. And beside you're going to meet the guys from the Tuan.
When are you going home? We're changing our
we're-
flights.
It's so
Twins.
crazy. There's actually people that come to the restaurant and be like who have seen the film in San Sebastian or something, and they're like, "Where's Chin at? We want to see Chin."
Yeah.
Like,
It's
the
the
last
plot
plumbing
of the
shop
film.
closed.
It really is.
He's got David Bowie energy, really. It's very
Yes.
special.
It's
And
incredible.
the most difficult thing was to make him not smile because he's the nicest person on earth, and he was like, "How you doing?" I said, "No, please, no, Chen,
You're
please."
like, "No."
Because I was calling him Chen. His real name is Henry, and this is the only character in the film who got another name. The other have their own name.
Okay.
So it's Henry, and I said, "Please, Henry, don't smile." But it's very complicated. I know that, but please don't.
Do not be yourself.
And he was so nice. And he was wearing this jacket. So when we were talking about this character of Chen, he was thinking about someone, remember? And it was finally where the guy was not motivated and we were like struggling. And he said, why not going to Henry? He's a very special look. When we saw him, we're like, oh, this is the guy. So with Marine, we were talking about Marine Garnier, my producer, and we were talking about the character. When we saw him, we say he has to be like that because he's wears the jacket. And you
I'm
take
so
it
happy.
as you take it as he is, and please go see him.
We'll hang out with him.
He's the
Cannot
best
wait,
ever.
seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. And since then, he's actually acting in many different other
Yeah,
movies.
he's been in Times Square. He's been like a model. He's done like music videos. It's funny every time because I take the train and I walk by the plumbing shop and I see him every day outside smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
And I call him by his actor name. I'm like, Mr. Chin.
Yeah.
I don't call him by Henry anymore. He's Mr. Chin.
Oh, I'm
Jim,
sure he
Jim.
loves
Henry.
it. It's like this newfound fame on top of his already.
Oh, he loves it. He'll
Yeah.
come to me and talk to me about all his gigs that he has going on. It's
we
crazy.
gotta have him on Bitch Talk.
When we come to your
When we come to
restaurant,
New
we'll
York,
have him on.
Yeah, we'd
Yeah.
love to.
Please reach out to us. I'd love to
He's
make
right
the
there,
connection
yeah.
for you.
Most
Oh,
beautiful
love it.
person, yeah.
That is so
And
cool.
this film is really about empathy. You know, we love people in general and try to make it feels like a family style movie. We actually shot on 3 blocks in Chinatown. That's it. So it's we call
That's
it in French.
amazing.
We say neighborhood movie. Friends of friends, neighbors, blah, and it feels so right. And especially in that kind of dark days, I would say in the world, those values of saying we're stronger together is what we want to share, really. Telling beautiful stories about beautiful people because it's in their blood. They just want to take care of people. I find it so beautiful, you know.
That's hospitality. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? The first time I went to the restaurant with Marine, we remember that we just sat and he said, you know what? We're going to take care of you. This is something like, it's not a regular sentence. It feels right, you know. They're really that deep inside, and it's all about this gigantic family.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
can feel it in the film.
And also, you know what about the languages, because you got English, Vietnamese, Cantonese, Mandarin, and even a bit of Spanish, and one line on
Yes,
French.
yeah.
And I like the fact that we kept Chen without subtitle, because you know exactly what he means.
Oh, yeah.
And I like that. You know, my father, he knew only French, but he was able to communicate with anyone because it was a language of the heart. And those guys like that, the fact that it's just about the way you look at people and the way you bring vibration to others, and then you understand. So we kept it like that because it gets something special. And I love the moment where, sorry about that because I'm keep.
No.
But
Tell us more.
I'm passionate about that. But I love the moment where you follow Gerald and suddenly the camera stopped on Jung, and then you follow Jung and you are in another world, another story.
Yes.
And this moment for me was a very special moment because it really felt like the inspiration of the Taiwanese movies and Hong Kongese movies, like directors like Wong Kar-wai or Tsai Ming-liang. That kind of energy when you feel like the texture, the vibration, and you feel with them, you eat with them, you breathe with them. And that kind of sensation is, for me, the most valuable thing in this film. Yeah. That's my opinion.
No, it's true. Sensation is a perfect word to use for this film. It's visceral. Your reaction to it, the visuals, the voiceover, you feel like you're in your head. It's just, we're right along with you the whole time.
Yes.
So,
Thank you so much.
Unfortunately, we have to let y'all go because you have some cooking to do.
Yeah, there's some prep to do.
But before we go, we end each segment with something we call This Bitch. So this is a chance for our guests to shine a light on someone or something that's bringing them joy, or you can throw shade at someone or something that's pissing you off. So I'll let you decide who wants to start. Who is your This Bitch of the moment?
This bitch that comes to my mind is Lang Nguyen. This bitch, he was an actor in the film. He was one of my day ones at Mom, and he is now living in Korea. He's the guy in the green beanie at the spice shop eating the chips.
Yes.
And, he's a
Spice
dear,
Shop.
dear friend of mine, and he flew out from Korea to Austin to be here for the festival, and I got to spend all day with him yesterday. Yeah, I love him, and, he definitely at the same time grinds my gears. And at the restaurant, I remember giving him a lot of earfuls, so it's a little bit of shade and love. But yeah, Lang.
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So for me, the moment I feel beat to myself.
You're the bitch?
Yes.
I like that. This is so original.
I mean,
love it.
You are the bitch.
Yeah, I
You
wish
are that bitch.
Yeah, I wish I have more patience to my children. I mean, a lot's going on, so I wish I more patience to my children. That's all about. Yes.
I think you're being a little hard on yourself.
Yeah.
You got a lot on your plate, but look at how far you've come.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
You're
Are you
welcome.
kidding? And also, I'll watch the baby this afternoon.
Yeah, she's a baby
I love
whisperer.
babies. I'm
She
not
really
kidding.
is.
I'll cancel whatever we're doing
Yeah.
later. I don't need to go to that red carpet.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
No. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, that's motherhood and
Yeah.
parenthood.
And life be lifing right now. Like
Yeah.
it's rough out here.
Yeah, so many things,
That's why we bring
trying
light.
to do, work, try to be a good mother.
Business
Try to enjoy
owner.
life,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
No, we get it.
Yeah.
We'll cry with you.
Yeah.
We normally cry on this show, actually. We do.
Showing up is like
Yeah.
80% of everything, right? Just being there, trying your best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have this bitch?
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, but after
Oh,
it's complicated.
It's complicated.
It's always complicated.
No, my bitch from so long is Anne and Green John, my best buddy and my brother. We've been together since we were 14 and doing those movies and films and music and sport, a lot of skateboarding together. And if this film exists, it's because of him and all the people around, my brothers, my parents, my wife and kids. That's all. It's my bitch would say, the whole community of the people in my heart. But also, those guys are parts of my life now, and I feel very honored to have them as friends and very blessed and I'm very happy that we could be seen here and in the festival because it's always important to bring light to people who got good heart very good behavior and humanity, because the main thing about this film is about bringing the most important thing is humanity. And it is what it is.
Thank you so much. You keep using the word community, and that's what food is all about. So thank you for this beautiful film. We've been celebrating Mom, premiering the U.S. premiere at South by Southwest. Congratulations to all of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You're
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us on today's show. You can find more information about this episode in our show notes.
If you're missing us, you can visit us at bitchtalkpodcast.com to sign up for our newsletter and buy us a cup of coffee.
Did you know we're also on the radio? You can find us at bff.fm.
And lastly, rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. All the cool bitches are doing it.